Now, at the time, it was hailed as the crime of the century. 50 years ago, a gang of robbers held up a Royal Mail train carrying banknotes from Scotland to London. They got away with £2.6 million. That's the equivalent today of about £46 million, or to put in dollar value, $71 million. The events of the Great Train Robbery have passed into British folklore. Newspaper headlines glamorised the heist and the gang became household names. But what's often forgotten is that the robbers did use force on both the driver, Jack Mills, and workers who were in the mail carriage. Well, with me are Nick Russell-Pavier, author of The Great Train Robbery, and Peter Jones, a former Metropolitan Police detective who flew to Brazil in 1974 to try to bring back escaped train robber Ronnie Biggs. Both of you, welcome to Global. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. Nick, I mean, what do you make of people putting up statues?
It is most bizarre. I mean, this was not something we should be celebrating in terms of lionising criminals. They're pretty unpleasant people. They're not heroes in any sense of the word. They're certainly not altruistic. They're stealing and beating up people for their own personal gain. So it's a mystery.
So why do you think, Peter, that there was something... They came sort of almost were cheeky chappies, heroic guys, cock a snook at the authorities, you know, and it was all kind of East End lads who've done well, they've nicked the money and taken it away.
Well, I suppose they were keen to steal money from anybody, but particularly those who had a connection which was easy to get into, which is one of the important things, I suppose, that made them thieves from the start.
I just wonder whether it made it more difficult for the Metropolitan Police to pursue this case, the sense that they were somehow, no one died in this train robbery, they got all this money, unmarked banknotes, and away they went.
Well, where do I start on this one? Because the train robbery was organised by they spent a lot of time looking at it, and I think the train robbery, the robbery before this one, was the one which they used the money from that to get on with this one. So it's a bit of a carrying on from the last one, you know, because they weren't caught for that one. So they then got about it, they had the money to go to set up all the vehicles and all those other implements they needed to go and carry out the robbery, which as you know, took place in 50 years ago today.
Yeah, and were you assigned to the case immediately?
No. I was at the time of this. I was a detective counselor at Brixton Police Station, but I went on the flying squad, and on that particular occasion when the newspaper of the what's the name? Newspaper?
Or did you, when you went to Brazil, tell me this, and you met Ronnie Biggs, and you tried to persuade him to come back, what did you think of him? Did you think of him as a criminal or as a kind of quite a nice bloke?
I have to say he was quite articulate. He could get a bit excited about things, as he did with the police officer we were with from Rio when he went to put a gun at him to shoot him because he wasn't doing as he was told, which was rather interesting. So he did get excited about that. But then after that calmed down, I went into the bedroom with him, and then Jack Slipper was talking about what we had to do then, because he was a girlfriend there who was naked. We're 9 floors up, all very interesting. 9 floors up, and no one's going to jump out of that, so he was pretty safely.
And Nick, I mean, what it did give, it was a great series of stories like the ones we've just been hearing.
I mean, that's why we're talking about it today, quite honestly, and it's partly because of Biggs and his antics. I think if it wasn't for him, although he took a very small part in the actual robbery, clearly being on the run for 36 years, being in Brazil, doing videos with the Sex Pistols, all this stuff kept bubbling along, and it kept the crime alive in our minds, I think. Yeah,
and do you think that there'll be any way that people will kind of recalibrate their view of this crime and start thinking, actually, these were bad people? Or do you think that it's kind of now cemented in folklore?
Well, I mean, without wishing to sound too self-promoting, that's precisely why I've written a book about it, because I think there is a recalibration we could take, and it's actually a much more interesting story than the sort of caper that we've been fed by Biggs and his mates. It's actually a more complex story and much more socially significant of its time, I think.
OK, both of you, thank you very much indeed for being with us here on Global. Grateful to you. Thanks for coming into the studio.